Did you notice it? Or were you too focused on what you were about to say? That split second when you stepped through the door. When the noise didn't stop, but it changed, softened. Like someone turned down the volume without touching the dial. Eyes that used to glance past you now linger. Just for a moment. Just long enough to notice. People who used to cut you off mid-sentence now finish their thoughts faster. Clear space. Wait. And here's the weird part. No one's treating you differently on purpose. There's no meeting where they all agreed to respect you now. No memo went out. It's instinct, something they're responding to that they can't name. They don't know what it is, but you do. Because 6 months ago, a year ago, maybe longer, you made a decision, a quiet one, the kind nobody sees. You stopped participating in your own disrespect, stopped explaining yourself to people who weaponized your honesty, stopped bending to keep people comfortable who never once adjusted for you, stopped showing up to spaces that required you to be smaller just to belong, and somewhere in all that stopping, something started. You started trusting yourself more than you trusted their opinions, started valuing your peace more than their approval, started moving like someone who didn't need permission anymore. And rooms feel that, people feel that, even when they don't have words for it. So yeah, the room went quiet when you walked in, and they have no idea why. But you do, and that's all that matters. Let's talk about what really happened. Let's be honest about who you used to be. Not to shame you, but because understanding the before helps you appreciate the after. You were soft, really soft. The kind of soft that absorbs impact so others don't have to feel it. The kind that bends so things don't break. You listened to people longer than they deserved. You gave explanations to people who had already made up their minds about you. You stayed in conversations that drained you because walking away felt rude. You made yourself available. Always available. Like your time, your energy, your attention were resources anyone could access without asking. And people got comfortable with that. They got comfortable interrupting you. Comfortable dismissing your ideas before you finished explaining them. Comfortable assuming you'd always make room for them even when they never made room for you. They mistook your kindness for weakness, your patience for desperation, your willingness to understand for a need to be understood. And maybe, if we're being completely honest, there was a version of you that did need them, that did want the approval, that did believe being seen mattered more than being aligned. There was a time when belonging felt safer than standing alone. When fitting in felt more important than being yourself. When keeping the peace felt like the right thing to do even when it cost you your peace. You bent. A lot. You adjusted. You accommodated. You made yourself smaller to make others comfortable. Not because you were weak, but because you genuinely believed that's what good people do. That's what kind people do. That's what evolved people do. You believed that if you just loved hard enough, gave enough, understood enough, stayed patient enough, people would eventually see your value. They'd eventually respect what you brought to the table. They'd eventually stop taking you for granted. But they didn't. They just got more comfortable taking. And here's what nobody tells you about being that person. That soft, understanding, always there person. People don't respect endless patience. They exploit it. They don't appreciate constant availability. They expect it. They don't value your kindness. They assume it's free and unlimited. You became the person everyone called when they needed something, but nobody checked on when you needed something. You became the one who held space for everyone else's emotions, but had nowhere to put your own. You became background support in everyone else's story, never the main character in your own. And the worst part, you didn't even realize it was happening, because it happened slowly, one small compromise at a time, one boundary you didn't set, One time you said yes when you meant no. One moment you laughed off disrespect because confronting it felt too hard. Until one day you looked around and realized you'd built a life where everyone else was comfortable and you were exhausted, where everyone else felt heard and you were still explaining yourself, where everyone else got to be themselves and you were still performing a version of yourself that kept the peace. That's when something cracked. Maybe it was one specific moment, one conversation where you realized they weren't actually listening. One time you gave everything and got nothing back. One betrayal that finally made you see the pattern clearly. Or maybe it wasn't dramatic at all. Maybe you just woke up one day tired. Tired of explaining, tired of bending, tired of shrinking, tired of giving pieces of yourself to people who treated those pieces like they were disposable. And you made a decision. A quiet one. The kind that doesn't announce itself with declarations or dramatic exits. You decided to stop. Just stop. Stop participating in dynamics that required you to be less than you are. Stop accepting treatment you'd never give to someone else. Stop explaining yourself to people who already decided not to understand. You didn't burn bridges. You didn't make speeches. You didn't tell everyone they were wrong about you. You just started moving differently, speaking differently, showing up differently. And that's when everything changed. The shift started in small ways. Ways so subtle that even you didn't notice at first. You stopped responding immediately to every message, not to play games, but because you realized your availability had become an expectation rather than a gift. You stopped over-explaining your decisions, not to be mysterious, but because you understood that people who trust you don't need essays. And people who don't trust you won't believe essays anyway. You started saying no without apologies attached. Just no. Clean, clear, non-negotiable. You stopped filling awkward silences, stopped rescuing conversations that other people should have been maintaining, stopped doing the emotional labor for rooms that never thanked you for it. And here's what's interesting. You didn't feel powerful when you started doing this. You felt uncomfortable. Because you'd spent so long being the accommodating one that boundaries felt foreign, almost rude. But you did it anyway. Because you'd finally realized something crucial. Your comfort matters just as much as theirs. Actually, in your own life, your comfort matters more. That realization changed everything. You stopped shrinking in spaces that felt too small. If a room couldn't hold the real you left, not dramatically, just left. You stopped explaining your boundaries to people who kept testing them. You just enforced them. And when people pushed back, when they said you'd changed, when they acted hurt that you weren't available the way you used to be, you didn't defend yourself. You just let them feel however they felt about it. Because here's what you learned. People who benefited from your lack of boundaries will always be upset when you develop them. That upset isn't your responsibility to manage. And slowly, without you fully realizing it was happening, you started trusting yourself more than you trusted other people's opinions of you. You started checking in with yourself before checking with the room. Started asking, does this align with who I am, instead of will this make them comfortable? Started choosing honesty over harmony, truth over temporary peace. And that internal shift, that reorientation of who you answer to, that created an external shift you couldn't control even if you wanted to. People started treating you differently, not because you demanded it, but because you were no longer available for the old treatment. The ones who used to talk over you started noticing when you went quiet, because your silence wasn't passive anymore, it was observant. And they could feel the difference. The ones who used to dismiss your ideas started asking follow-up questions, because you weren't over-explaining anymore. You'd say your piece and stop, and that restraint made your words carry more weight. The ones who used to expect constant access started realizing you weren't always available, and your selective availability made your presence more valuable. You didn't plan any of this. You weren't strategizing respect. You were just protecting your peace, and respect showed up as a side effect. But here's what nobody tells you about this phase. Not everyone celebrates your growth. Some people got uncomfortable. The ones who relied on your old patterns didn't know how to interact with this new version of you. They'd test you, poke at the old version, reference who you used to be, try to guilt you back into familiar dynamics. You've really changed, they'd say, and you'd hear the accusation in it, as if evolution was betrayal, as if you'd violated some unspoken contract to stay manageable. But you didn't bend back, you didn't explain, you didn't apologize for growing. You just let them sit with their discomfort, because their discomfort with your growth was information. It told you who was invested in your stagnation. And some people distanced themselves, quietly. No drama, no confrontation. They just faded. And you let them, because you'd learned that not everyone is meant to walk with you into every season. Distance isn't always rejection. Sometimes it's just misalignment correcting itself. The people who stayed, though, the ones who remained close, they felt different. They didn't need the old version of you. They met this version with curiosity and respect. These were the ones who weren't threatened by your boundaries, who didn't compete with your growth, who celebrated your evolution without needing credit for it. These connections got deeper, quieter, more solid, built on mutual respect rather than mutual need. And you started understanding something powerful. Respect and neediness can't coexist. The moment you stopped needing their approval, you became someone they could actually respect. So what's happening in their heads when you walk into that room now? When the energy shifts and they don't know why? Confusion, mostly. Because the formula they were using to understand you doesn't work anymore. You used to be predictable. They knew how to get a reaction from you, knew what buttons to push, knew you'd explain yourself if they questioned you, knew you'd accommodate if they pushed hard enough. But now you're not reactive, you're responsive. There's a difference. Reactive people defend immediately. Responsive people observe first. Reactive people need to correct misunderstandings. Responsive people let time and consistency do the clarifying. You're not playing defense anymore. You're not rushing to make sure people understand you. You're just being. And letting people catch up in their own time. Or not. Either way is fine. That shift confuses them, because they're still using old maps to navigate new territory. And the maps aren't working. Some of them are recalculating. Going back through past interactions with new eyes, remembering moments they dismissed you, and wondering how they missed what was happening. Wondering when you changed, not realizing you didn't change, you just stopped hiding. Others feel something closer to caution. They sense you're not available for the old games, that your patience isn't unlimited anymore, that your kindness comes with boundaries now. They don't test you the way they used to. They think before they speak around you. They watch their tone, not because you demanded it, but because some instinct in them recognizes that carelessness won't be tolerated anymore. That's respect, not the loud kind, the quiet kind, the kind that shows up as restraint. And then there are the ones who feel threatened. Your growth holds up a mirror to their stagnation. Your boundaries highlight their lack of them. Your peace exposes their chaos. These are the ones who will say you've gotten arrogant, cold, different. They'll frame your self-respect as selfishness, your boundaries as walls, your growth as loss. Let them. Their discomfort with your evolution is not your problem to solve. You're not here to stay small so they can feel big. But here's what most of them are feeling, whether they can name it or not. Loss of control, because control requires leverage. and you're not giving them leverage anymore. They can't guilt you into over-explaining. They can't pressure you into people-pleasing. They can't manipulate you into doubting yourself. They can't use your kindness against you anymore, because your kindness comes with clarity now. And without leverage, without control, without the ability to predict and manage you, they're left with only one option: respect. Real respect. The kind that isn't performed. The kind that's felt. They respect you now because they have to. Because you've made it impossible not to. Not through force, not through demands, but through simple, consistent self-respect that doesn't negotiate. And the beautiful irony? The version of you that desperately wanted their respect wouldn't have gotten it, because people don't respect desperation. They respect certainty. You had to stop needing their respect to earn it. You had to stop seeking their approval to command it. You had to become someone who didn't require external validation to feel valuable. And once you became that person, once you aligned with yourself so completely that other people's opinions became background noise, that's when respect arrived. Not because you chased it, because you embodied something that naturally commands it. Alignment, integrity, self-trust, boundaries, peace. You're not performing confidence, you're living it. You're not pretending to have standards, you're enforcing them. You're not trying to be respected, you're being respectable. And there's a massive difference between those two things. And your energy isn't asking for anything anymore. It's not seeking, it's not performing, it's not adjusting. It's just present, grounded, certain. And that kind of presence reorganizes spaces without effort. But let's talk about what doesn't change. Because this isn't about becoming someone new. It's about becoming more yourself. You're still kind, but your kindness is intentional now. Not automatic. It goes to people who value it, not to anyone who demands it. You're still patient, but your patience has limits. It's offered to people who are genuinely trying, not to people who are just taking. You're still understanding, but you understand yourself first now. And you've realized that understanding toxic behavior doesn't mean tolerating it. You didn't become cold, you became clear. You didn't become mean, you became boundaried. You didn't become arrogant, you became self-assured. There's a massive difference, and the people who matter see it. You're also learning what this new level requires of you. Because growth isn't a destination, it's maintenance. You have to keep choosing yourself every day, even when it's uncomfortable. Even when old patterns whisper that maybe you're being too much, too intense, too boundaried. You have to keep saying no to what doesn't serve you, even when opportunities look good on paper. Even when people you care about are disappointed. Even when saying no costs you something. You have to keep trusting yourself. Even when you're not sure. Even when the room disagrees. Even when you can't explain your intuition with logic. Because the moment you stop trusting yourself, the moment you start seeking validation from others again, the moment you compromise your boundaries for acceptance, that's when the respect fades. Respect isn't permanent. It's earned daily through consistent alignment between who you say you are and who you actually are. You're also realizing that this level is quieter than you expected. There's no applause up here. No celebration, no trophy for finally respecting yourself, just peace and space, and the calm that comes from knowing you're not betraying yourself anymore. Some days that feels like enough, other days it feels lonely, because there are fewer people at this altitude, fewer voices, fewer distractions, fewer people who understand what it took to get here. but you're learning to be okay with that, because you've discovered something valuable. It's better to be alone with your integrity than surrounded by people who require you to compromise it. Quality over quantity, alignment over crowd size, peace over popularity. And you're noticing something else. Your intuition is sharper now. You can feel when someone's energy is off, when someone's words don't match their intentions, when someone's getting close to you for the wrong reasons. You don't ignore those feelings anymore. You don't talk yourself out of your instincts to give people chances they haven't earned. You trust that inner knowing because it's kept you safe. It's guided you here. You've also learned to recognize your people faster, the ones who get it without explanation, the ones who respect your boundaries without testing them first, the ones who celebrate your growth without feeling threatened by it. These people feel different, lighter, easier, not because they're perfect, but because they're aligned with themselves, with truth, with growth. And aligned people don't require you to shrink. They meet you where you are. Here's what you're carrying forward: the understanding that respect is a reflection. When you respect yourself, others mirror it back. When you tolerate disrespect, others mirror that too. You're the standard. You set the tone, not through what you say, through what you accept. And you've decided you're done accepting anything less than what you give. Done with one-sided dynamics. Done with relationships where you do all the work. Done with spaces that drain more than they fill. You're selective now, not because you think you're better than others, but because you finally understand your energy is finite and valuable, and you're investing it wisely. That selectiveness, that's what they feel when you walk in the room. That's why things go quiet, because they can sense you're not available for just anything anymore. You're not accessible by default. You're chosen, intentional, careful about who and what gets your attention. And attention that's selective is powerful. It makes your presence matter, your words land, your absence felt. So what happens next? Now that you're here, now that you've earned the respect you used to chase, now that rooms shift when you enter, you keep going, you keep growing, because this isn't the finish line, it's a checkpoint. There will be new rooms, new levels, new challenges, new people who don't respect you yet. And you'll have to prove it again, not to them, to yourself. You'll have moments where the old patterns try to creep back in, where you're tempted to over-explain, where you almost apologize for setting a boundary, where you consider shrinking just a little to keep the peace. And you'll have to catch yourself, remind yourself who you've become. Remember what it cost you to get here. Choose yourself again. You'll also face new types of challenges, because people who respected the previous version of you might not respect this next evolution. Growth creates distance. Always has. Always will. Some people will celebrate this version of you but resist the next one. They'll want you to stay here, manageable, explainable, comfortable. And you'll have to disappoint them by continuing to evolve anyway. Because your growth isn't a democracy. It's not up for vote. You're going to keep changing, keep shedding, keep becoming. And not everyone will make the journey with you. That's okay. That's how it works. But here's what you take with you. No matter where you go, the knowledge that respect isn't given, it's reflected. That you can't control whether people respect you, but you can control whether you respect yourself. And when you do, when you honor yourself consistently, set boundaries without apology, trust yourself without needing consensus, choose peace over performance, respect arrives naturally, not from everyone, but from the people who matter, including yourself. Especially yourself. The room will keep going quiet when you walk in, Because that's what happens when someone who used to shrink starts taking up their rightful space. When someone who used to bend starts standing firm. When someone who used to seek validation starts generating it internally. People feel that. Rooms feel that. Energy doesn't lie. And you don't need to announce it. Don't need to prove it. Don't need to explain it. You just need to keep being it, consistently, unapologetically, without regression. That's the real power. Not the moment people notice, but the daily choice to stay aligned even when no one's watching, even when it costs you, even when it's uncomfortable. Because respect that's earned through consistent self-respect, that doesn't fade. That doesn't require maintenance from others. That's yours. Permanent. Unshakable. The room went quiet when you walked in, and nobody knows why, except you. And honestly, that's exactly how it should be. Keep walking. Keep growing. Keep choosing yourself. The respect will follow. It always does.